Okay, good evening all. So today we start our second subject in your semester 5, that is principles of information security. Okay, so another mandatory IT subject. Okay, right. So this is theory subject, not a practical subject. Exam is not that difficult, but you need to memorize few things as well. Okay, right. So let's look at the syllabus first. And again, we'll be doing very fast. So information security, how to secure information and information system, basically data, sorry, information and information systems, and include the security when you are doing networking. Okay. So these are the objectives. Explain the concept of securing information. Explain the concept of symmetric key, asymmetric key, cryptography. Contrast the encryption, decryption algorithms and key distribution protocols. Differentiate the security requirements of various software systems such as OS, database, and other programs. Develop solutions for various security-related problems in information system. So you have 10 topics. Information security concepts, hash functions, and MAC. Actually, we want to finish the first two today. Okay, because those are small topics. So then you have the symmetric key encryption, asymmetric key encryption, key distribution protocols, OS security, database security, program security, electronic payment systems, that is like your credit card payments and so on, how to secure. And finally, digital crimes and legal background of information security. Okay, right. So let's straight away move on to our first topic. That is the introductory topic, information system, information security concepts. Okay. Again, the note is available in the Google Classroom. Under information system, principles of information system security. So syllabus is there, past papers available up to 2020. So then this is the note that we will be using today. So this is the, why it says unknown file. Hopefully you can get it. Yeah, you can get it. So this is our note and this is the UCSC note. Okay. First, I will go through our notes, then I will quickly go through the UCSC note. Okay. Right. Right. So let's start with introduction to information system security. Okay. Right. So this introductory topic is very easy, even you can read it and understand. So therefore, I'll do it very fast. Okay, very, very fast, because we need more time for topic 3, 4, 5, and those things. Okay. Right. So why are we interested in information security? Remember, we are interested about our security. Right. For example, you are interested about your securing your properties. Right? That is why you have the CCTV cameras and blah, blah, blah. Right. So that is your property, securing your property. So then you are interested about yourself. So that is why you are health conscious, we take your precautions when for the accidents, health security. Then you are interested about your financial security. So that is why you want to do some savings and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now we have another thing, that is information security. Yes, we are interested about our other properties, ourselves, health, money, At the same time, we are interested in information security. So that is more important because we are living in the era of information. Information, the value of information is more and more, getting more and more. Okay. Right. So we live in the era of information, and therefore information and knowledge is one of our biggest assets. Of course, the good news is your knowledge and information is mostly in your brain, which no one can steal. But at the same time, if you take a organization and so on, so they have a lot of information in their information systems, right? And also bulk of the transactions, economic activities are related to information. So therefore, we need to secure that also as part of securing the financial aspects. And we use more and more digital money. So therefore, it's basically the now you may have seen that when they transfer money, they take a lot of security precautions, right? Especially when they transfer money for the banks and so on. But these days, the millions of transactions happens in internet, and people use more and more digital money, credit cards, online banking, cryptocurrencies. So that is why your final topic is secure payments. Okay. So things are getting more and more serious. Information security is getting more and more important day by day. So that is why in your final year, you have another topic called cybersecurity. So you might be wondering why there are two topics, because security is getting more and more important. Okay, more and more important. Right, what are the valuable information? Because not every information you need to secure. If it has a value, you need to secure. Of course, if it is not of value, no one will care. So what are the valuable information? Of course, the business information. Its client details, transactions, product related, some trade secrets, personal information. Right? You don't want to share your Gmail password with others, right? Your Facebook, Instagram, sometimes it can be end of a marriage also. Personal information. So we want to secure. Financial information, your bank accounts and so on. Knowledge, that is another thing, because knowledge is also valuable. And of course, your communications, like your chat with others, emails. So we want to secure all these different things. So now let's try to understand, yes, we need to secure information, but let's try to categorize them so that we can tackle separately or sometimes collectively. Of course, we need to secure data, right? Data, maybe your personal information, your financial information, your emails, communications. That is why even when you take something like WhatsApp, they encrypt the communication. Then we need to secure programs, systems, our accounting system, inventory management system. For two reasons. One thing is someone might destroy it. Other reason is maybe someone can change the logic to take advantage. Right? And of course, the communication. Communication is also pretty much data, but while it is transmitted through networks and so on. Okay, so therefore, that is also mainly data. So get that big picture. So otherwise, then it will be easier for you. Right. What are the key aspects of security? Or when we say securing information or information system security, what are the four key aspects? So this is super important slide. So if you can make sure the availability is there, confidentiality is there, integrity is there, non-repudiation is there, we are pretty much done. So that is what we are targeting. Make sure the information availability is not compromised, confidentiality is not compromised, integrity is not compromised, non-repudiation is there. So let's take one by one. So what is mean by availability? This is the most important. Of course, everything is, all these four aspects are important. So availability means when it should be available to the required people. For example, when you go out for extended period, or when you go, everyone goes out of your house, you lock your home. Why? Because when you come back, your laptop must be there, right? Your fridge must be there, your TV must be there, availability. So if someone take those out or someone destroy it, so you lose the availability. So same is there for data and information systems. So we want to make sure that our data information systems are safe. They are not destroyed by people with vicious intentions. So that is called availability. For example, when you access a particular site, it must be, I think, during the exam period also, I found that, I think during the semester 2 exams, few times BIT-UOC was hacked. And there are some messages or messages. So that means availability. Now students are in critical situation. So they have another paper. Sometimes they have not downloaded a particular past paper. Not. So the system is not available. Hacked. I think it happened 3 times, 3 or 4 times. Of course, every time they somehow manage to make it up and running again after a few hours. That is availability. That is availability. So that is a very important aspect of security. Second one is confidentiality. So there are sensitive data that we don't want to expose to others. So we don't want to expose those sensitive data to others. So that is called confidentiality. For example, I don't want to expose my password. I don't want to expose my emails, my chat, and some confidential documents. So that is called confidentiality. Second pillar in security. Availability, confidentiality. The third one is integrity. So integrity means data is not altered by third party, vicious party. So if you have saved it as ABC, when you access it, it must still be ABC. If you note it as 1 million, that you have given a loan 1 million rupees. So when you again look at it, it must be 1 million rupee, not 0.5 million rupee. If someone has changed it, maybe you get fooled because you can't always rely on your memory. So that is called integrity. So integrity can be compromised during data transmission in networks or during the data is stored. Maybe someone has altered in the database. That is another serious aspect that we want to tackle in our security, information system security. And the final one is the fourth one, non-repudiation. So non-repudiation means when someone does something, he or she must not be able to claim that I haven't done it. And also when someone has not done something, he or she must not be able to say I have done it. For example, say you have not submitted your assignment. So you must not be able to say I have submitted it on time. Say you did you try to hack, and later you must not be able to say no, I didn't try that. I didn't even access your system. So that is called non-repudiation. Otherwise, you will withdraw money and then go to the bank and say, someone look at my balance is reduced. So that's a dispute, right? So if you have non-repudiation measures, bank should be able to defend. Right. So what are the 4 pillars? Availability, confidentiality, integrity, and non-repudiation. So those are the 4 things we want to preserve. Right. So now let's look at some possible concepts related to attacks. Of course, attackers will try to compromise availability, integrity, confidentiality, or non-repudiation. So these are the basic terminology related to not only information security, related to security. So these are general terms. First one is vulnerability. Vulnerability means weakness or fault in the system. So when there's a fault, it's easier for someone to attack. And attackers keep looking for these vulnerabilities. And our task is, before attackers find it, we find it and fix it. So that is called vulnerability. The next concept is threat. So just because there are vulnerabilities, it doesn't mean that everyone is going to attack. Okay? Only people with a intention will attack. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ දොරක් කරලා ගියා කියලා අහලා පාලින් හැමෝම හොරකම් කරන් යන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ අවටක් ඉන්නවනම් හොරෙක් ගන්න හොරයි. හොරාට අතවන්නවා දැන් දොර ඇල්ල දෙලි. අඩි මිනිස්සු එහෙම කරන්නේ නැහැ. අනිත් අය threats නෙමෙයි තමයි. Right. So what is a threat? So threat is possibility of someone attacking. So if there's a possible person, that is a threat. And if there's possible person and possible vulnerability, that is ideal combination for attack. So there's a potential threat, there's a potential vulnerability. So you're asking for attack. So attack is someone is now utilizing that vulnerability and try to compromise your security. So that is called attack. So that means the threat has become reality. As long as threat is not done, it is not attack. But the moment the threat has become a reality, now we say we have attack. We have DOS attack, virus attack. Someone has hacked. So those are the basic terms: vulnerability, threat, attack. So as I told you, so there are some prerequisites for attack to happen. So there must be opportunity. Opportunity means basically there are vulnerabilities. Okay. And there must be motive for attacker. So someone must feel like I want to use this vulnerability and attack. Maybe you want to destroy it, maybe steal some data. And there must be a method. There must be method. So that is why information security compromisation. So these people also need to be very talented because they know the methods, possible methods. Okay. Right. So let's look at the type of attackers. Okay. Type of attackers. So these are all from your UCSC notes. After this note is completed, we'll go through your UCSC note, taking about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. Right. So the first category is amateurs. Someone inexperienced and unskilled, maybe a kid. For his or her curiosity, maybe he or she try to attack, try to hack, try to do a DOS attack. So that is called amateurs. So they don't have a lot of vicious intentions. Most of the time they have the curiosity, or maybe a little bit vicious, because there can be vicious people in kids level as well. Second one, hacker. So hackers are a little bit more serious. They are more knowledgeable. They are not amateurs or kids. But their motive is little bit innocent, not very vicious. So that means they are again maybe curiosity, maybe just they want to prove something that I can hack it, or maybe they just want to annoy. But when you get to the next level, we call them crackers or criminals. So basically, hacker and cracker they do the same, but you can see the intention is now very vicious when it comes to crackers or criminals. So they definitely want to destroy things. They want to make sure that the genuine users cannot access it. They want to steal some data, change for their financial or any other benefits. So then we call it crackers or criminal. And of course, regular users are there. Of course, regular users are not basically attackers. So they're just accessing because they also access the system. For example, when I access my bank application, I am not attacker, I'm a regular user. But if I try to access it and maybe do some fraudulent transactions and so on, then I am not a regular user. I may be a hacker, cracker, and so on. Right. So we can identify two types of attacks. What is known as active attacks and passive attacks. So the name itself says active attack means we can see the attack or we can feel it easily. Active. Okay. Maybe someone has destroyed, maybe someone has hacked your account and changed the password. Active attack. Because when you try to log in, you can't log in. You know that something wrong. Maybe someone has hacked your email account and deleted all the emails. You can immediately notice. Maybe someone has hacked your social media account and post some offensive things. Active attack. Maybe someone has hacked your bank account and done some money transfers. Active attack. So then what are the passive attacks? Active attacks, yes, they are really bad. But at the same time, we can easily detect. Then what about passive attacks? Passive attack means they somehow maybe access your resource, but they don't do any modifications, right? Delete and that kind of things they don't. They just passively get some information. For example, assume that I have hacked one of your email account. So I can also log into your account, but I don't do anything. I don't send emails. I don't delete your emails, but I just observe your email. So it's very difficult for you to detect that. Of course, these days, that is why the moment someone, your email account is accessed by an unknown device. So immediately you will get a message saying there's an attempt to access your system. Is it you? Because if someone managed to log in, maybe he's not going to change your password. He's doing a passive attack. Okay. Maybe he or she is doing a passive attack for a very long time and all of a sudden do a active attack after getting all these information. So that is a difference between active attack and passive attack. Passive attacks are difficult to detect. Right. So now let's look at it in a different way. The type of threats. So what are those type of threats? Interception, interruption, modification, and fabrication. So these are self-explanatory, therefore I'm just going faster. So interception means you just intercept. You just read it, you just get the messages, you just watch it, but you don't do any modifications and so on. So it's a passive attack. Interception. හරියට අනුන්ගේ කෝල් එකකට අහමින් ඉන්නවා. අල්ලපු කාමරේ ඉඳලා. හැමදාම එයා කෝල් වලට අහමින් ඉන්නවා. එච්චරයි. අර දෙන්න හිතගෙන එයාගේ කියනේවට මෙයා අහමින් ඉන්නේ නැහැ. So that is called interception, passive attack. Then you have the interruption. Interruption means you interrupt the transmission or you destroy the data. It's active attack. Interruption. Then you have the modification. Modification means maybe you modify the data while it is being transmitted in the network or while it is saved. It's another active attack. Modification. And the final one is fabrication. Fabrication means you introduce things. Maybe you introduce new records to the system after hacking. You don't destroy anything. You don't change, but you introduce new things. Maybe you have added some emails, messages. So that is called fabrication. Sometimes you pretend like it is sent from some other party, but actually that attacker is sending those after hacking your system. So that is called fabrication. So what are the four types of attacks? interception, interruption, modification, fabrication. So these are more related to network security. Right. So now we move on to our next concept. Remember, we are just doing the introduction to information security. Attack surfaces. Right. So earlier we discussed that there can be attack on data or programs. So that is very high level. Now we look at it in a slightly more serious manner. So attack surface means a possible aspect that can be attacked related to information security. What are those aspects? Of course, the attack may be on hardware. Maybe someone, you're thinking of all those security measures. And maybe you don't lock the server room. So what about someone, right, break into your server room and destroy the server or take the server with all the data physically? So that is attack surface. Hardware. Attack in software. Maybe virus attack or someone change your programs. Storage media, maybe someone attack your database, your files. The data itself. So this is storage media, like your hard disk. This is your data itself. Even there are possibilities of attacking and at the memory level. Maybe another program try to attack, try to access the data in your that related to that processing in the memory. But these are very rare these days because operating systems take all the precautions to not to expose the memory of one program to the other program. And of course, a lot of people forget about people. So you take all these things, but maybe you bribe the system administrator and get the job done. And this is one of the easiest in some cases. So therefore, people aspects we can't forget. So that is why we need the professionals involved in these things, audits, policies, procedures. And of course, the organization level attacks can happen. Okay, communication level. Communication level means while the data is being transferred, network level. You can see that there are so many attack surfaces. And easily we might miss one area and maybe that is the area the attack is happening. So therefore, when you secure information, you need to consider all these things. All these things, because you never know from which surface the attack happens. So this is a sort of a classification like network side, software side, human sides, high level classification. Okay. Our next subtopic is attack tree. So attack tree is something like this. So remember, there are so many possibilities for attack. So of course, you must have some sort of intention for attack. Some sort of a intention. So based on that, people will have some goals, sub goals. Okay. So then they must come up with some method, right? Strategy, methods. Because just because someone has intention doesn't mean that the attack can be done. Okay. So mapping these levels is called attack tree, maybe for one particular attack or in general. Say this is maybe the objective is leak some privacy data, get some privacy data. So possible sub goals, then maybe your tactics, strategies. then maybe some specific activities. Ultimately, you want to achieve this. So when you prepare like that, we call it attack tree. Information system security professionals, they like to prepare these kind of attack trees and make sure if there are vulnerabilities. Of course, attack trees might be there, but as long as there are no vulnerabilities, that is fine. If there are vulnerabilities, they want to fix those. Okay. So that is called what? Attack tree. So this is another way of looking at it. That is human and technical. Of course, when you secure software, communication, data, more it's a technical aspect. Encryption, logging, monitoring. At the same time, there's a human aspect. Right? Can you trust your employees? So for human aspects, what we need to do is, first of all, make sure that you hire professionals with high moral and ethical values. High moral and ethical. They don't do bad things because they have values. They are people of values. Second, they must have the knowledge and competencies to secure data. So they know the importance of securing data and in systems, and they do it because they know it. And at the same time, we need to make sure that the proper standards, policies, procedures are there so that everyone follow it. Because there can be, otherwise there can be mistakes. Maybe some vicious person might misuse. So in order to minimize that, organizations set up standards related to security, information security. Sometimes we have the chief information security officer, set up policies and procedures, because we can't always rely on the professionalism of the people. One thing is they make mistakes, they may not be very serious, or there can be vicious people. Right, so now we are into the how. How to secure. So remember, first we discussed what are the 4 aspects: availability, integrity, confidentiality, non-repudiation. So those are the aspects that we want to preserve. Now we talk about how to do the security, especially at technical level, not human level. Of course, human level, take the ethical people, competent people, have policies and procedures, audits. So that is human aspects. Now we are into the technical aspects. So the key areas are authentication, authorization, encryption or encryption decryption, use of checksums or digest or hash, the logging and auditing. And your next 2 topics are basically, one is related to this, that is your next topic, hashing. And your third topic is all about encryption, decryption. So therefore, we will not be going into details about these 2 because anyway, these 2 are your next 2 topics. But we'll be a little bit more serious about these 3 because we don't talk about these 3 much later. And these 3 are the easier, simpler things. For these 2, we take it as 2 separate topics. And today itself, we'll do this one and finish it. Authentication. So these are things that you already know actually. So what is mean authentication? So authentication means make sure that only the relevant users are given access, or relevant users can access the relevant resource. Of course, that relevant resource part is authorization. Only relevant people can access is authentication. For example, if you take our Google Classroom, so if you have given you the access, you can access. Others can't access. Just because they log into the Google Classroom software, they can't see our classroom. That is actually authorization. Authentication means, for example, you can log into VLE, University VLE. I can log in as an institute, but maybe someone else may not be able to access your UCSC VLE, though they try to use some random usernames and passwords. So that is called authentication. That is called authentication. Only relevant users can access the system. Others are rejected. They can't access. They can't go beyond login screen. That is called authentication. So that reduces the risk. Unnecessary people will not be able to access the system. So they are blocked. They are blocked. Something like check your ID and allow you to enter. So there are three ways you can authenticate. So something user knows, something user have, something user is, or something users are, something you are. So something you know is basically password, PIN number, security question. Something you have is like your card, RSA token, even mobile phone. That is why they are sending the OTP to the mobile phone. If you are that person, you must have the mobile phone. Something user has. And something user is basically biometrics, fingerprints, retina, face detection, and so on. Right? Something user knows, something user has, something user is. So, and we can combine these also. So then we call it two-factor authentication, three-factor authentication. For example, when you go to the ATM machine, first you need to insert your card, that is something user has. Then you need to enter your PIN number, that is user knows. So two-factor authentication. When you do online money transfer, first you need to enter your password, that is something user knows. Then they will send you the OTP, that is something user has. You can see most of the time we go for two-factor authentication. Because the more when you combine more and more aspects, it's strong and strong. And when you're developing your final year system also, obviously you must implement the authentication. Maybe at least using one factor. But if you can, it depends on your system actually. Maybe you can enable two-factor authentication like password as well as OTP. Because these days integrating a SMS is not a big thing. Okay. Right. So next one is authorization. Authentication, authorization. Authorization means you allow a particular user to access only the relevant data. That is called authorization. For example, if you take something like a supermarket, you may have seen that these cashiers can enter items, but they can't remove items. So then they need to call the supervisor. Okay. So they are not authorized to do that. Maybe some reports only the managers can see. Others are not authorized to view the report. That is called what? Authorization. For example, when I log into Gmail, I am authorized to see my emails. I can't see your email and you can't see my email. That is also authorization. Okay. So we discussed about authorization in our database subject, semester 2. Remember we discussed the user-based authorization versus role-based authorization. So you need to refresh it, okay? So user-based authorization means that is the simple approach, but not very effective. It's if you have a lot of users, that is not a very scalable approach. You just give access to the users. So if you have 100 users, you give the access to these 100 users separately. Access to this report, access to this particular action. So that is okay if you have this very small system with few users, but it's not very scalable. So when you have big organizations with branches and a lot of users, we always go for role-based authorization. Anyway, this is not new thing. You have learned this in semester 2. Even you learn how to add a role, how to grant access to a role, how to assign role to a user using SQL, grant, revoke. So just refresh it, okay? So that is called role-based authorization. Users are assigned roles and access is given to roles. So therefore, when you assign a role, when a user is assigned a role, indirectly, that user is getting the access, which is more flexible because users can assign multiple roles and so on. Right. So now we discuss authentication, authorization. Third one is encryption, decryption. So that is for confidentiality. We don't want to expose sensitive data to third parties. So we encrypt. Encrypt means your password is hello, but it is not something that is transmitted in the internet or say some other weird text. So that is called encryption. And later you can decrypt in the server or when you want to retrieve it. What is transmitted is encrypted text. What is stored is encrypted text, not the real text or the plain text. Of course, our third topic is all about encryption. Actually, third topic and fourth topic. Symmetric key cryptography, asymmetric key cryptography. Therefore, we don't want to discuss it in detail here. Just remember, there are two approaches called symmetric key cryptography and asymmetric key cryptography. Or another name is private key cryptography and public key cryptography. So therefore, we don't go into detail because anyway, we have two topics for that. Then our next, now we discuss authentication, authorization, encryption. The fourth one is use of checksum or digest or hash. That is to guard against integrity. Integrity means someone changed the data without you knowing. So how to prevent that, or how to actually is not prevent, basically detect it by using checksums, digest, hash. Anyway, that is our next topic. After the break, we'll do this part. So therefore, I don't want to go into details. And now final aspect is, of course, this is checksum. We will learn about this in detail in next topic, okay? Right, the final one is to guard non-repudiation. Remember, non-repudiation means when you do something, you must not be able to claim I have not done it. When you haven't done it, you must not be able to say I have done it. So how to preserve it? How to preserve the non-repudiation? By auditing or logging. So all your activities are logged in the system. So then the system has log file saying you have login in this particular time from this particular IP address. Then you did this particular transfer, this particular transaction. So then when you go and say, I haven't done it, so they can check the log. Okay. And if you say, I have done it, they can check the log and see whether actually you have done it. They will say, no, you haven't even logged into the system on that day, on that time. So that is called auditing or logging. So that is why we need log files. In real world applications, always there's a log file. Always there's a log file. Right. So that's it about topic 1. Okay. Right. So now I'll go through the UCSC note very quickly. Of course, UCSC note has the latter part, it has the encryption, decryption related things, but I will not, I did not do that because anyway, we are going to do it in the topic 3. Okay. Right. So now let's look at your UCSC note related to information security concepts. Okay. Of course, your final year notes are very brief. That is intentionally they do to make sure that you do a lot of self studies, right? You become more and more independent. That is why we are also doing it faster because that is important aspect in higher education, right? Make you more and more independent. Right. So these are the subtopics. So you can go through the note anyway. I just going through the note, the importance of security and so on. The especially importance of information security in the information era. And what is information security? The method and technologies for protecting integrity, availability, authenticity, and blah, 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 both data and programs. Then what is threat? What is attack? What is asset? What is a motive? What is opportunity? Okay. So the different type of users like amateur, cracker, criminal, regular user. Right. What is vulnerability? What is attack? What is a threat? What is a risk? What is a control? අපි පාවිච්චි කරන ගුරු සමහර වචන තියෙනවා ඒවලදී මම එච්චර කතා කරේ නෑ ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නවනේ risk එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද එහෙම කියන්නේ problem එකක් කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා දන්නවනේ ඉතින් මේ attack එකක් වුණාම තමයි problem එකක් තමයි. Okay. Especially what is a threat, what is an attack, what is a vulnerability, what is an asset. Asset means valuable thing. And the difference between active attack and passive attack. And of course, different type of security like physical security, financial security, information security is one aspect. And of course, the confidentiality, integrity, availability, right? මම ඔකට තව එකක් එකතු කරා non repudiation කියලා. ඒක ඔතන දාලා නැහැ ඒගොල්ලෝ. But yes, confidentiality, availability, integrity, and the fourth one is actually non-repudiation. ඔන්න ඔය හතරට තමයි අපි security aspects. Right, so we discuss what is confidentiality, integrity, availability. Right, attack surfaces, right, hardware, data, software, programs, humans, right, so many things. And then the attack tree, how these things can be mapped together. Okay. And how to counter, how to use the attack tree to analyze and see, fix the vulnerabilities. So technical aspects, human aspects, okay? Because we need both technical and human related things. Like policies, procedures, even physical controls like locking your hardware resources. Right, from this point onwards part, I have not covered because we will be covering that when we are doing the topic 2, sorry, topic 3, encryption, decryption, because this is related to encryption, decryption, okay? So I have not done this because we will be covering this in topic 3, okay? Topic 3, community cover. Right, so that's it about topic 1, for the part of the topic 1, because the last set of slides we will be covering in topic 3. Right, so now we'll take a break. After the break, we'll move on to topic 2, that is hashing. That is hash functions and MAC. Again, the notes are available. So this is our note and this is UCSC note. So we'll start at 7:50. We'll take 20 minutes break because we are doing fast as well. Then of course we can finish it before 10. Okay, so now 7:50, we'll start at 8:10. Okay, so let's move on to our topic number 2, hash functions mac and hmac. Okay. Again, we'll go through our note and then we'll go through the UCSC note. Right. So this topic is related to integrity aspect. That is why we first discussed the concepts. Okay. Integrity. Remember availability, confidentiality, integrity, non-repudiation. Integrity means make sure that your data is not altered, or in case altered, detect it. Actually, this is basically to detect the alterations. Maybe alteration during the transmission, maybe alteration during the while it is being saved. Okay. So our task is detect if someone has changed it. Okay. So in order to do that, we use these hash functions, mac functions, hmac functions. Okay. So the idea is preserving the integrity and make sure that the data or programs are not changed by third parties during persistence, or that is saved, or transmission. Right? How to do that? It's super simple concept. Super simple concept. So what we do is, say this is our data. Maybe it's a document, maybe it's a record. Okay. So we take what is known as hash or digest of that. Hash or digest is a short, small thing which is a representation of this big text or content, which is a representation. So we calculate the digest or hash, okay, or checksum, and either we can keep it separately or we can attach it to the document. Okay. So then say it's a data transmission. When we get this data, again we calculate the hash or the digest using the same technique on the data that we got, and check whether our digest is it same as the original digest. So original digest is before transmission. This digest is after transmission. No, original digest is before saving. This digest is maybe after saving, maybe after some time, after we retrieve it. And if those two digests are the same, in between the data is not changed. That is why we get the same digest. But if there's a change, we can say that someone has changed it. So we can discard it. So that is the idea behind digest. So that is how we preserve integrity. So it doesn't mean that we don't allow people to change it. Rather, we detect that someone has changed it. Someone, third party has changed it. So then what is this hash mac or hmac is doing? So those are some functions to generate the digest that represent the original content. Generate the digest. So that digest must be smaller, but it must reasonably represent the original content. So that when someone change the content, it will give a different digest. Okay. I don't know what is the meaning of digest? You know what is digestive system, right? Ahara jeerna paddhati. So it's something like your digest depends on your food. But digest and food is different, but digest depends on food. So that is how they have given this word digest. Okay. So therefore, digest or checksum or hash, there are some prerequisites. What are those prerequisites? Number one, of course, the digest or the hash or checksum must represent the entire content. If it doesn't represent the entire content, maybe just part of it, then if someone change the other part, you will get the same digest. That change is not detected. So good digest algorithms, good checksum algorithms will use your entire content to generate the digest or the checksum. So that is common sense, right? Otherwise, it's not going to work. Second one is your digest must be smaller than your original content, because otherwise it is not convenient. And also, digest must be fixed width. Regardless of your content might be different size, but digest must be always the same size. So what are the three things of a good digest? Digest must depends on your entire content. Digest must be smaller than original content, and digest must be fixed size. For different size original content, your digest must be fixed size. Fixed size. And also for a given content, whether we use that algorithm 10 times, you must get the same checksum or the same digest. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Otherwise, even though the content is not changed, your digest will say it has been changed. So therefore, as long as the content is not changed, you must get the same digest. And of course, as the moment content is changed, you must get a different digest. Otherwise, you don't detect it. For same content, we must always get the same digest. For different content, we must get different digest. For different content, if we get the same digest, that is also bad. Okay. But the way we generate the digest, there's no guarantee. Of course, there's a guarantee that for same content, you will get the same digest. But there's no guarantee that for different digest, different content, you always get the different digest. There's no such guarantee. So therefore there's a possibility that for different content, you might get the same digest. Okay. That is because we try to generate a smaller content. So when you generate a smaller content from a bigger content, there's always possibility of collision. Two things map to the same thing. So therefore, that is something that we can't get rid of. That is something we can minimize, but two different contents generating the same digest is something that we cannot eliminate. We cannot eliminate. But it is usually not a very big issue. The big issue is if for the same content, if you are not getting the same digest. So therefore, as long as for different content you get different digest, that is good. But rarely for different content you may get the same digest. But that is not very common. So therefore, when someone change it, if that change is to a very specific thing only, we get the same digest. Otherwise, 99.99% of the time, the moment you do a change, you will get a different digest and it's detected. Okay. It's detected. Now, this explains that in a way the problem. You can see that both John Smith and Sandra D, it has resulted in the same checksum or the digest, which is in a way bad, but we can't prevent it because we try to map a bigger text to a smaller text, smaller value. So therefore, that is something that we need to live with it. But we try to minimize it. Good algorithms will minimize it. Right. So what are the approaches to generate these checksums or digest? So there are three approaches. What are those three approaches? Use of hash functions, use of MAC functions, and of course, use of HMAC functions or hash-based MAC. Okay. If it is hash function, we don't use a key. Key means another input, additional input. But if it is a MAC or HMAC, we use a key. We use a key. So that will make it a little bit more stronger. Okay. So hash, we don't use a key. MAC and HMAC, we use a key. So basically hash mac keys, we use hash function with the key. Mac function is slightly different concept than hash function. Of course, mac functions also we use key, but if you use a hash with a key, we call it hmac. Okay, so that is how the three possibilities. And each approach has its pros and cons. So we'll start with hash functions. So you have already done hash functions in semester 4 under data structures and algorithms. Remember, one of your data structure is hash. So therefore, hash is not something new for you. Of course, if you have done it properly. Right. What does hash function do? Hash function will map a bigger value range to a smaller range. Bigger range to a smaller range. So that small value will represent the bigger value. So that is what we need, right? Bigger thing, smaller thing representing the bigger thing. Bigger thing, smaller thing representing the bigger thing. So that is the idea. Okay. Right. So hash function is the simplest approach. There are a lot of well-known hash functions, especially in arithmetic, that some of those you learn in your data structures and algorithm subject as well. So what are the features of good hash function? Good hash function. So we call them the one-way property, weak collision resistance, and strong collision resistance. So this is a bit of theory. First, I will give you an example of a hash function that you have already learned in semester 4. Mod function. So that is something you have used in semester 4. Mod function says capital N mod simple n. So when you do a mod operation, your result is always between 0 to n minus 1, simple n minus 1. Say you do it as mod 10. It doesn't matter how big this number is, the result is always between 0 to 9. If it is 985, it is 5. It is 10,826, it is 6. It is 38, it is 8. And of course, if it is 98, still it is 8. But always your value is between 0 to 9 if you use mod 10. Remember, you did the module arithmetic also in semester 1, introductory maths. If you do mod 5, the value is always between 0 to 4. If you use mod 100, 0 to 99, and so on. So variable values map to a fixed value, maybe 0 to 9, 0 to 5. So that is the idea. Big range map to a small range. But collision is possible, right? Because 78, 98 also map to 8. 38 is also mapped to 8 if you do mod 10. And not only that, even 48, 68, 108, all are mapping to this. So that is collision. Collision is something we like to minimize, but that is not something we can eliminate. Now let's look at features of some good hash functions. Features of some good hash functions. So we did look at 3 properties. That is one-way property, weak collision resistance, and strong collision resistance. So what is mean by one-way property? So one-way property means, say given a hash value, right? Say for a particular x value, we have calculated the hash value. Right? For a particular x value, we have calculated the hash value. We know the hash value, but we don't know the x value. So someone must not be able to find it easily. Another possibility for the same H value. Maybe if there's another Y value that gives the same H value, then even though this guy changed this X to Y, still we will feel like the data is not changed. Actually, they have changed the data from X to Y. That is, if this guy can find a Y value which gives the same hash value. If it is easy to find such a value, that means one-way property is not fulfilled. So ideally, it must be infeasible for someone to find this kind of value. Or at least it must be very difficult. So that is called one-way property. The second property is weak collision. Actually, these are the sort of the same thing in different point of views. So weak collision means, again, something like we have hash y, hash x. So that means, say, if hash of y, so we know the hash of x, which is p. So we must not be able to find another hash y, which is same as hash x. So that means, again, sort of the same thing. You must not be able to easily find a y value that will give the same hash value. Same hash value. Okay. So you can see that it is pretty much the same story, put it in two different point of views, two different aspects, context. Third one is strong collision resistance. It must be infeasible to find x and y such that xy is hx. Okay. So that means not x is given, you find y. Right. Earlier, x is given, you find y. Or y is given, you find hash is given, you find x. You can see hash is given, find x. X is given, find y. And this one is find x and y such that hy is hx. So that means find two numbers or two values where you get the same hash value. So you must not be able to find that kind of things also. Ideally infeasible. If it is a good hash function, of course, the word infeasible is not a practical thing. So what we usually find is good hash functions, these are very difficult. Okay, difficult to find these things. One-way property, weak collision resistance, strong collision resistance. Just keep that in mind, right? H is given, find x. X is given, find y. Find x and y, both. Yeah, I can highlight that part for your note later on. Because once you see the pattern only, it is easier for you to first understand and then remember. Otherwise, it's very difficult to memorize these things, okay? Without understanding or without getting any context or without seeing the patterns. Right. So those are features of good hash function. One-way property, weak collision, strong collision. Right. So let's look at some of the hash functions so that you get better sense about it. Of course, you look at I think you look at all three in semester 4 also under data structures and algorithm, because otherwise you don't know what we are talking. Right. I already explained you the mod method. So if you do k mod dem, the result is always between 0 to m minus 1. If it is mod 10, the result is 0 to 9. If it is mod 50, result is 0 to 49. So how do you decide the value? It depends on amount of data. So you must find something reasonable value, where not too much of collisions. Right? If too much of collisions are there, maybe you want to increase your M. At the same time, you can't keep it very big because then your mod value is not going to be small. So we want to make it reasonably small At the same time, reasonably low collisions. Right. So that is called mod function. Second approach is, of course, there are so many approaches, mid-square method. So the idea is to try to make it randomized as much as possible so that there are less patterns and also less collisions. So that is why we do these additional things, okay? So mid-square method, what we do is we square the values of the key. Okay. Key. Actually, this is not K2, it must be K squared, okay? Let me fix that also. There's a small error in your slide. Right, I will upload the updated one after the class, okay? Because I fixed two issues. So you square it and then do the hashing. Okay, you square it and do the hashing. That is called mid-square approach. Another approach is folding. Again, why we are doing these things to make it more and more randomized. Okay, more and more randomized. So in folding method, you divide the key. Key means basically your data into number of parts like K1, K2, K3, Kn, where each part has the same number of digits. That means fixed with the values, except for the last part, because last part may not be have the same value because your data is variable size. Okay. So therefore, the last part may have the lesser number of digits. That is natural. Then add the individual parts. You just add it, individual parts. The hash value is obtained by ignoring the last carry, if any. Okay. So let's take an example. Say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You break it into say 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So then you add it. 12 plus 34 plus 5, 51. So then you find the hash of 51. So because 51 is smaller value than this. So this somewhat represent this, and its hash value is calculated. So again, the idea is to try to minimize the collisions and randomize. Okay. Even you can think of any logic. So therefore, these are three of the famous logic only. Okay, division, mod, mid square, and folding. I don't think that the examiner will ask about these specific methods, but just I gave it so that you can get an idea about feeling about what is hashing is. Okay, and not for you to memorize these techniques. Right. So these are the two of the most popular practical hash functions. These are just simple approaches mathematically. But practically what we use is, practically used hash functions are MD5, SHA, SHS. Those are the two most popular hash functions. Okay. And if you go for something like your browser, now remember this one is also using encryption decryption. So I can go to its certificate. Okay. Connection is secure. Say more information. And if you go to its certificate details, okay. And maybe it's also using SHA. Let me double check. Is it using SHA? Yes, you can see. Miscellaneous signature algorithm SHA 256 with RSA encryption. Okay, so these are the practical use. And for public key cryptography, ecliptic curve cryptography. We will discuss about ecliptic curve cryptography under public key encryption. And this is the signature. Signature means this representation of the document. So they have used SHA 256 with RSA encryption. That is encryption. Okay. So this is SHA 256 is for digest. SHA 256. Right. So let's look at some features of these two. Because those are the two most popular hash functions, MD5 and SHA. And whether you like it or not, you need to memorize these things. I told you this subject, you need to memorize certain things. So they ask about what is the block size, what is the key size, what is the digest size, right? What are the limitations, okay, and so on. So I try to extract the most important things because otherwise I know that you can't memorize all the things in the world and those are very boring. But whether you like it or not, at least those things I have underlined, you need to memorize. Okay. So MD5 hashing algorithm. So MD5 stand for Message Digest version 5. Message Digest algorithm. Developed by Ronald Rivers. So this guy is a very famous guy because this is the, remember that you will have another algorithm called RSA later on, encryption decryption. So this is the same guy who actually three people get together and generated came up with this RSA encryption algorithm, and it is the same guy who one of the guy who came up with this RSA algorithm is the one who came up with this MD5 algorithm, Ronald Rivers. Ronald Rivers. And it process messages. Remember, hash algorithm is to process your message and get a fixed value that represents this content, reasonably represent this content. So therefore, when we generate this hash value, maybe this is hundreds of bytes, maybe a book, a document, legal document. So therefore, it processes this document in 512-bit blocks. So if they break it into 512-bit blocks and process it by these 512 blocks, ultimately generate this hash. But this hash will represent entire document. So you must remember what is the block size for MD5, 512 bits. In other words, it is 4 words of 128 bit. Therefore, 128 into 4 is 512. 128 into 4 is 512. Okay, UCSC note there is 4 words of 128 bit. You can 512 down. Remember, break it into 512 blocks, your document or your content. So therefore, obviously, your last block may not be 512. මොකද ආ content එක 512 බෙදෙන bit ගණන් වෙන්න ඕන කියලා නේද යන්නේ. So then it need to add some additional content to make it 512. Because then only it can process it as 512 blocks. So that is called padding. ඒකට අපි කියන්නේ padding කරනවා කියලා. Padding must be done to the last block to make up to 512, because when you have data like this, there's no guarantee that it will always break it into 512. So then, of course, make it last one also 512, you need to add some extra bits. So that is called padding. Of course, the amount of padding depends on your data. Okay? Depends on your data. But we need to make sure that we do some padding to make your final block also 512. Okay. And of course, this approach can be, or the MD5 can be used to generate hash for any size data. There's no upper limit because there are some algorithms, there's upper limit. So this is the message size is unlimited. So those are features you need to remember. Block size is 512. Padding must be done to make it the last block 512. And the message size is unlimited. and the resulting hash value is 128 bit. So this is break it into 512 blocks, and representing all these data, you get a hash value which is 128 bit. On no මතක තියෙනවා. මේ 512 blocks, මේක 128 bit. මේක size එක ඕන තරම් උනාට කමක් නැහැ. ඒකේ limit එකක් නැහැ. කොහොමද 512ට කඩලා හැබැයි ඔක්කොම represent වෙන තේ hash එක හැදෙන්නේ. ඒකට මොකක් හරි මෙතන එක bit එකක් වෙනස් වෙච්ච ගමන් hash එක වෙනස් වෙනවා. නැත්නම් වඩා අහුවෙන්නේ නැහැ. Integrity violate කියලා. Right. So this is a very famous question in your paper. ඔයාගේ paper එකේ තියෙන famous question. හරි නිතර repeat කරන්න ඒවා. එකක් තමයි say your message is perfectly broken into 512 blocks. හරියටම 512 block එකකට කැඩෙනවා. padding කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ කියලා අපිට දෙන එතකොට. But even when it is perfectly fit into 512 blocks, still you need to add a 512 block padding. ඔන්නෝක නිතර අහන question එක. Right. If the last block is exactly 512 bits, still entire block of padding must be done. එහෙම උනා කියලා padding නොකර ඉන්න බෑ. ඒත් එතකොට full 512 block එකම padding කරන්න. So that is to make sure that your algorithms is used in a consistent manner. Okay? ඔය question එක නිතර අහනවා. සමහරට හැම අවුරුද්දෙම අහලා තියෙනවා. මොකද මේක වැඩි ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න question උත් අඩුයි exam එකට. හරි? එයාගේ හැමදාම අහන ප්‍රශ්න ටිකක් තමයි ගොඩක් අයට තියෙන්නේ. එහෙමයි කියලා ප්‍රශ්න ටික විතර පාඩම් කරලා යන්නත් බෑ. එහෙම නැති ප්‍රශ්නත් භාගයක් විතර තියෙනවා. හරි? Right, so this is the big picture. Say this is our message. We break it into 512 blocks. වෙනම 512 blocks වලට කඩලා තියෙනවා. Okay. Well, කඩන්න කලින් මොකද කරන්නේ මෙතන? padding කරන්න ඕන. Because maybe otherwise you don't get a 512 block at the end. So that is your padding. Right, padding. මොන padding කරලා තියෙන්නේ. padding කරාට පස්සේ ඔක්කොම 512 තමයි දැන්. padding කරන්න ඕන නැතත් 512 padding කරන්න ඕන. හරියටම කැඩලා තිබුණා. So now you have 512 blocks. 512 blocks. Now you want to generate the hash for this that represent the entire message. So therefore what it does is it apply the MD5 algorithm to this block. Then this block and the result of this one. We can change karna. So then this hash is depending on both blocks, because this block is also input and the hash of the previous block is also input. And likewise it is changed. So hash of this is again you are calculating the padding hash. First input is your block, 512 block. Other input is the previously chained hash, and so on. And final 512 block and previously chained hash gives you a final hash or final digest, which is 128 bit. Digest size 128. Now to make this consistent, because everywhere there are two inputs. But for the first one, there is no input because that is your first block. There is no previous hash. So that is called initial value. ඒකට අපි value එකක් hard code කරලා දානවා. Because then only this algorithm is consistent. Always you have two inputs. So therefore we call it initial value. It's sort of a random string we can use. හැබැයි ඒ initial value එකම ආයිමත් generate කරද්දිත් use කරන්න ඕන. නැත්නම් hash එක පැටලෙනවා. Right, any questions about this? How the MD5 work? මේක තේරුම් ගන්න තු පාඩම් කරන්න කිව්වොත් ඔයාලට පිස්සු වැදෙනවා. හරි? ඔළුවත් කැක්කුම ඇති. ඩයග්‍රෑම් එක දිහා බැලුවොත් මේ ලොම ගොල්ලෝ තේරෙන්නේ නැති වෙයි. Right, so that is how MD5 is done. So this initial value is because in all the other cases you have two inputs. That is why you need it. And you can see that if at least one bit is changed, අපි හිතුව මෙන්න මේ block එකේ change වුණා කියලා. හරි, මෙතනට නිකන් මේක වෙනසක් නැහැ. නමුත් එතනින් පස්සේ ඔය අන්තිම එකට යනකම දැන් මේ වෙනස හන්දා අන්තිම digest එක වෙනස් වෙනවා. කලින් තියුණට වඩා. අන්න අපිට අහු වෙනවා change වුණා කියලා. ඒකයි මේක change කරන්නේ. ඒකන්ද මෙතන මොකක් හරි change වුණත් මේක වෙනස් වෙනවා. අන්තිම block එකේ වෙනසක් වුණත් මේක වෙනස් වෙනවා. කොහේ වෙනස් වුණත් වෙනස් වෙනවා. So that is the idea. Right, so that is called MD5 hash algorithm. So some pros and cons, positives and negatives of MD5. MD5 has dependent on all message bits. So that is anyway, because we are doing this chaining. Anyway, that is a general concept in any hash functions. Okay, if you are not taking another one, then make ඒක සාමාන්‍ය වෙන්න ඕනේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒක හොඳ hash function එකක් නෙමෙයි. And also Rivers, who came up with this hash function, has claimed that it is really good one. Okay, or sort of a perfect one. But contrary to his claim, later we have found that, or information security specialists have found that this is vulnerable. Okay. So therefore, that is why we use less MD5 and more SHA. Because now we have found, people have found that MD5 is not ideal. There are possible attacks like brute force attack. Brute force attack can have possibilities of දදා බලනවා. හරි, එහෙම දදා බලනකොට මේකෙන් අහුවෙන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවා. අහුවෙන්න ඉඩ දෙන ඉක්මනට brute force attack එකෙන් කොහොමද ඕන ඇල්ගොරිතම් එකක් අහුවෙලා නමුත් අපි හිතනට වැඩි ඉක්මනට හොයාගන්න පුළුවන් නම්, especially using very high performance computing power, if we can break it in a reasonable time, that is not good. So MD5 has found to be vulnerable with very high performing computers. Okay. So that is why these days we prefer to use SHA, secure hash algorithm. May they compare karan, hari? So MD5 also use 512 blocks. SHA also use 512 blocks. So now lazy. They come දෙන්න පාවිච්චි කරනවාද? 512 blocks. මෙයාගේ digest එක 128යි. මෙයාගේ digest එක 160යි. So same block size, but the digest length is different. Okay. And again, you need to do the padding. And even though you have the perfectly fitting, still you need to padding 512 entire block. And there's another limitation in SHA, which is not found in MD5, that is, there's a maximum message size, which is anyway very big, but there's a maximum message size. There was no maximum message size for MD5. Right? You can use it for unlimited message size, but for SHA, the maximum message size is 2 to the power 64 minus 1. Anyway, that is very big. So therefore, practically, this is not a very big issue. But anyway, theoretically, there's a maximum size. Other than that, this diagram is pretty much the same. Everything else is the same. Okay. So you have the 512 blocks, you have the initial value, you need to do padding. Right. Only thing is you get 160 digest. 160 digest. So this is the final digest. And again, you can see it is chain. So therefore, any change in any place will give you a different digest. And so, okay. Right. So this is a comparison between SHA, MD5, and there's another hash function called RIP EMD160. So we compare all three. This is directly taken from your UCSC note. So you can see the digest length is different in these two, SHA and MD5, but the unit size is the same. And here you have the maximum size limit. Here you don't have maximum size limit. But remember, SHA is better than MD5. And RIP EMD is pretty much like MD5. 120, sorry, pretty much like SHA. But remember, SHA has a limitation. There's a maximum message size. So that limitation is not there in RIP EMD. So therefore, in order to get rid of that maximum message size limitation, so they have developed something very similar to SHA, but no maximum limitation. That is why 160, 512, 512. but no maximum size. So that limitation is eliminated in RIP PMD 160. මේ කියලා තියෙන ස්ටෙප්ස් කීයකින්ද මේක ප්‍රොසෙස් කරන්න කියන එක ඒක ගොඩක් අට ඇතුළේ ටෙක්නිකලි වෙන වැඩක්. හරි ඒක අපිට එච්චරම වැදගත් නැහැ. Right, so have that comparison between SHA, MD5 and RIP PMD. Right, so now let's look at some practical usages of hash functions. So you can use hash functions as a public salt for passwords. Don't worry, we will look at what is meant by public salt. And also we can use hash function as authenticate the evidence. So those are the two usages mentioned in your note, UCSC note. Right, so let's quickly look at what is meant by password salt. Remember, sometimes we need to save others' passwords in our systems, say banking system. So do you think that your password for your bank account is saved in a database? If they have done it, that is really bad thing. Because in case someone hacked the database, your password is compromised. The worst case is they save it in a plain text. Of course, they never do that. Worst case. Now, I think from next week, the UCSC start the Viva for the last year, final year students. I don't think that any student encrypt the password and save, because every system has a user table where you keep the username, password, and so on. But I don't think that any student encrypt and save the password because they don't care. ඒගොල්ලෝ හදන්නේ නිකන් සෙල්ලම් ගෙවල් වගේ ඒවා තමයි සිස්ටම් කියලා හදන්නේ. සිංගිති මානසිකත්වය. කිසි කෙනෙක්ගේ සිස්ටම් එක මම දැකලා නැහැ ලොගින් ෆයිල් එකක් තියෙනවා. ලොග් ෆයිල් එකකට ලියනවා. transactions. තියෙන එකම ලබු ගෙඩිය තමයි security කියලා login screen එකක් තියෙනවා. 90 වගේම authorization නැහැ. password plain text save කරන්න. මේ කියනවා පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නැහැ කොටක්. අර ලියන SQL එකේ hash function එකක් දාලා save කරන්නේ නැහැ. plain text එක කොහේ කියලා save කරන්න. database එක open කරලා බැලුවොත් එහෙම බලන්නේ නැහැ මම හිතන්නේ ඉතින් දන්නවා මේව කරන්න නැහැ කියලා ගොඩක් අය. හැබැයි ඉතින් ෆයිනලි ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකක් යන්නේ වගකීමක් ගන්න ඕනේ දැන් නේ. සිංගිති ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් තමයි බහුතරේ කරන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ බහුතරේට තියෙන සිංගිති මානසිකත්වය. ෆයිනලි ඉන්නේ මේ අපි ඊළඟට ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකට යන්න ඕනේ එහෙම නැහැ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ දැන් මෙඩිකල් කොලෙජ් එකක ඉන්න ડોක්ටර් කෙනෙක් ඊළඟට ගිහිල්ලා බෙහෙත් දෙනවා තව ටික දවසකින්. මේ BIT කරන්නේ මොනවද හිතන් ඉන්නේ කියලා මම දන්නේ නැහැ. BIT කරන්නේ මේ IT ගැන කවි කොළ ලියනවද දන්නේ නැහැ. සීරියස් නැත්තම්. බස් වල නැගලා කවි කොළ ලියන්න තමයි වෙන්නේ. කියවන්න තමයි වෙන්නේ. තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණය ගැන. ප්‍රැක්ටිකලි මේවා කරන්න දන්නේ නැත්තම්. ජොබ් නම් හම්බ වෙන්නේ නැහැ එහෙම. පිස්සුවක් තියෙනවා ජොබ් දෙන්නේ එහෙම. ඕන තරම් සීරියස් කට්ටිය ලංකාවේ ඉන්නවනේ. සීරියස් ප්‍රොෆෙෂනල්ස්ලා. Right, so therefore you don't save your password as it is. Because if someone hacked the database, all the passwords are exposed. So this is what you must not do incorrect. You just save the Bob's password, Alice password as it is. Okay. So what is the correct way? This is the incorrect approach. So you take the hash of the password and save it. So Alice's actual password is PWA, but you don't save PWA in your server database. Rather, you take the hash of that and save it. So therefore, next time when Alice log in, Alice knows the password. So Alice will type his or her password. So then again, you take the same hash value and check whether is it same as the hash value in your table. So then you say yes. So what is the advantage of doing like this? If someone hacked the database, of course he or she will have all these hash values. But does it mean that using that hash value he or she can log in? එහෙම වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි හිතමු x ගේ hash value එක y නම් x කියලා ගහපුවොත් විතරයි log වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයාලට y කියන එක අහුණා කියලා y කියලා ගහුවම y එක hash වුණාම z කියලා වෙන එකනේ. එතකොට z එක මෙතන නැහැ. So therefore, even though someone hacked the hash value, he or she can't log in. He or she can't log in. So that is why rather than keeping the password, we keep the hash value of the password, which is secure. කෙනෙක්ගේ password එක අපි ගාව තියාගෙන ඉන්න හොඳ නැහැ. ඒ password එකේ මොකක් හරි වෙන representation නැත්නම් අපි තියාගෙන ඉන්න. අපි ඇත්තටම යාගේ password එක දන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක තමයි වෙන්න ඕන වැඩි. අපි දැනගත්ත කියන්නේ වැඩේ out. අපි නොදැන ඉන්න ඕනේ. එයා ගහන password එක. අපි කිසි කෙනෙක් අපේ පැත්තේ ඉන්න. ඒ වෙනුවට අපි කෙලිම change කරපෙගත්තා අපි තියන් ඉන්නේ. හැබැයි ඒක password එක නෙමෙයි. So that is called that is how you use the hashing. You keep the hash value of the password rather than the password itself. Okay, අනිත් විදිහට තමයි password එක encrypt කරලා තියෙන එක. ඒකත් එච්චර හොඳ නැහැ සමහරවිට. keys එක එළියට ගියොත් එම ඒකට වැඩිය හොඳයි hash කරලා ඕකේ encrypt කරලා තියෙන එක. hash කරාම ටිකක් හොඳයි. hash කරලා encrypt කරලා තියාගත්තා නම් තවත් හොඳයි. නිකම්ම encrypt කරලා තියනවට වඩා. Okay. Right. So there's another concept called salting. What is mean by salting? Or public salt. So we want users to use strong passwords, not something like hello 123 and so on, and your name ABC and so on. Okay, so they try to use simple passwords, short passwords. Of course, sometimes we can enforce them to do all the combinations, but still the combination is sometimes very popular. So ඔක්කොම ටික දාලා යා කියනවා සමහරට ABC 123 ඩොලර් කියලා ගහනවා. අර ඔක්කොම අහුවෙන්නේ. capital ABC 123 ඩොලර් කියලා ගහනවා. එතකොට හරි. accept කරන්න වෙනවා අපිට. හැබැයි මේක ඕන කෙනෙක්ට guess කරන්න ඕනේ. So those are called weak passwords. අපි කියන ඔක්කොමත් මේ comply කරලා එහෙනම් weak password එකක් දාන්න. So in that kind of a situation, or in general, what we can do is when the user enter the password, we can add another random string to make it stronger, and then maybe encrypt and save it, hash it and save it and so on. අපි මෙයාගේ password එකට තව කෑල්ලක් දාලා තමයි එයාගේ password එක කියලා ගන්න. ඒක user දන්නේ නැහැ එහෙම කෑල්ලක් එයාගේ password එකට දැම්ම කියලා අපි දාලා දිනවා. එයාගෙන් කොටසයි අපෙන් කොටසයි. අපි දානවා ඉතා හොඳ random string එක. So that is called adding a public salt. And for different passwords, we can add different public salts also. Not the same public salt. Each and every user's password, we add a different salt. And then we take the hash and save it, or encrypt and save it, or hash and encrypt and save it. That make it even stronger. Right? That make it even stronger. Okay. So that concept is called adding a public salt. So therefore, ultimately what we do, so this is the user's password, we add a public salt, and then you hash it and save it. Then you hash it and save it. So that gives you a better security. Their users. Okay. So those are some practical usages of hash. Anyway, we use the hash and we save the hash. Right. So these are some more applications of hashing, like authenticate the evidence. Okay. Like use of hash to create digital fingerprint of the evidence. So digital fingerprint means your hash represent your content. your hash represent your content. So this is your original content. To represent this, you generate something. So that is called digital fingerprint. For example, when you sign, ඔයා ඉන්නවනේ මෙහෙම නේද? කෙනෙක් විදියට. හැබැයි ඔයා represent කරන්නේ නේද? ඔයා signature එකක් ගන්න ඕම කියලා. මොන හරි කළා ගහනවා නෙමෙයි. මේ represent කරේ කාවද? ඔයාව. ඔයා ලොකුයි. ඔයාගේ ඇටලේ මස් 10 ඔක්කොම තියෙනවා. හැබැයි ඒ වෙනුවට ඔයා මෙන්න මේ අකුරු ටිකක් ලියලා පොඩි මේකක් දානවා. That is representing you. So the idea is others can't sign like you. Others can't sign like you. So therefore, in digital signing, what we do is to represent the entire document, we generate a string text, and that is a hash. On the hash check. It was a make a sign එක කියලා පාවිච්චි කරනවා. මොකද digital sign කරනවා. ඔය ඔකට ඉතින් අරයක් private key එක අරගෙන එහෙම තමයි කරන්නේ. එතකොට අනිත් අයට ඒ විදිහට sign කරන්න බෑ. But the initial point is to represent your data, we generate a hash value and then sign that hash. Sign කරනවා කියන්නේ මොකද්ද කියලා අපි කතා කරනවා public key cryptography. So that is called use of hash to create digital fingerprint of the evidence. Another usage is use of hash to create chain of custody. Okay. So ඒකද අපි කලිනුත් කරේ අර කැලි chain කරා මතකද? So then your final hash represents the entire content. So if because this hash is chained to the next hash, this hash is chained to the next hash, and so on. So then, if there's at least one place there's a change, it is finally detected. We don't care where, as long as there's a change, it is detected. So that is called chain of custody. So third one is create a watermark on evidence. So this is again sort of a hash, but not really a hash. Again, to give you a representation of your original content. So that if you change the content, your hash is changed or your watermark is changed. Okay. So use of hash to create digital fingerprint, use of hash to create chain of custody, create a watermark on evidence. But this is not visual watermark, it's sort of a digital watermark. So that digital watermark is sort of a hash. Okay. Right, so that's it about hash. Okay, so let's continue. Mac function. So remember when you are generating a hash value or digest value, because hash value is more related to hash functions. So general term is digest value or checksum. We can use either hash function or Mac function or HMac function. So the concept is the same. Only thing is the three type of functions: hash, Mac, HMac. So therefore, these are very simple subtopics. So the difference between hash and Mac is, first of all, Mac stand for message authentication code. In hash function, we don't use something called key. Key means additional input to make it stronger. So our hash depends on the input. Remember, that is how you wrote it, right? Hash of X is H. So only one input, that is our content. Of course, you can chain it and blah, 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 but still it is your hash value depends on the content only. But if it is Mac, we have two inputs. That is the content and key. So your final content hash or the digest depends on both message and a key. If it depends both message and key, then it's not a hash, it's a Mac. Okay, it's a Mac. Okay. So usually Mac functions are different from hash functions. So usually the Mac function is block cipher like DES. You will learn what is DES later when we do the cryptography. data encryption standard. Okay. So therefore, first of all, the function itself is different. It is not a hash function. It is MAC function. MAC functions are different from hash functions. Usually, MAC functions are block ciphers like DES. And of course, we use a key. Right? Key. So we need to keep that key secret. And still we get the fixed size result. Digest is fixed size. So therefore, only difference between hash and MAC is MAC use additionally key, and MAC functions are mostly block ciphers like DES, not hash functions. So again, the idea is the same. From the original content, we generate the MAC value. Now you call it MAC value rather than hash value because this is a MAC function. But the both hash and MAC is a digest. But now you can see there are two inputs, your message plus key. Message plus key. You generate the MAC and keep it. Then you transmit. If someone has not changed the content, again we use the same MAC algorithm and same key, and we get the MAC value. And if those two MAC values are the same, the new MAC value and the old MAC value are the same, means this has not been changed. If the two MAC values are different, someone has changed the content. Simple as that. So the only difference is hash functions depends only on the message or hash value, but MAC value depends on message and key. So therefore, this is a little bit stronger. Because we can only generate the MAC value because we only know the secret key. Therefore, others can't play with it. Okay. So what are the features of a good MAC function? Pretty much the good features of hash function must be available in MAC function. Okay. So therefore, the same concepts are there, like given a message and MAC, it should be infeasible to find another message with same MAC. MAC should be uniform distributed, right? Randomize. MAC should depends equally on all bits. Again, we found that property for hash as well. So your final MAC must depends on the entire message. So then only the moment you do a small change anywhere, you get a different HMAC. Sorry, different MAC. Okay. Right. When you generate MAC is sort of a hash, right? Both hash and MAC are digest. So we can use the conventional encryption, or you can use authentication without message encryption, or you can use message authentication port. Okay. So this is our approach, MAC approach, use of message authentication port. So we are more into, so our approach is the third one. So other than that, the other two approaches are doing the normal encryption, okay, or message authentication without encryption. But this is the third approach is one that we discuss, message authentication port. And this is how it works. Again, you can see we break it into blocks. So that is why we say we use block ciphers. Our message is taken into small fixed size blocks. And then we apply MAC algorithm like data encryption standard, DES. DES we will look at later. MAC the block cipher like DES. Block cipher can block tamai encrypt කරන්න. මේක ඇත්තටම encryption එක කරන්න. And again we need to chain it. Why do we need to chain it? because then only your final MAC value depends on the entire message. And again, we need initial value here because in all the other places, you have two input, your message part and the previous MAC. So therefore, for the first one, there is no previous MAC. So therefore, you need to give it a random string, initial value. So your final MAC depends on entire message. Because මෙතන MAC එක generate වෙද්දි මෙයයි කලින් MAC එකයි input. හරි. So therefore, it's pretty much the same. Only difference is this is not a hash function. This is a block cipher, and we use a key also. And this is your final MAC digest. Right. So then what about HMAC? So HMAC is a special MAC function. If it is a MAC function, you use a key. Right. So usually for MAC functions, what we use is block cipher like DES. But in HMAC, we use a hash function as your MAC function. අර පරණ hash function එකම තමයි use කරන්නේ. අර block ciphers වලට යන්නේ නැහැ වෙන. Encryption ciphers වලට. So we use hash function like MD5, SHA. But with a key. Key එකක් එක්ක හැබැයි යන්නේ. Key එකක් එක්ක ගියේ නැත්නම් MAC වෙන්නේ නැහැ. So then you call it hash MAC. Hash MAC. So we use the hash function, the conventional hash function. But usually in hashing, we input is only message. But now we do hash. We use a hash function, but together with a key also. So then we call it hash MAC. HMAC. මේ තුනේ වෙනස හරියට තේරුම් ගන්න ඕන. හරි hash function no key is used. MAC function key is used, but it's a different algorithm like a block cipher. HMAC means we use a hash function together with a key to generate the digest. So then it is HMAC. The MAC algorithm එක විදියට අපි සාමාන්‍ය MAC algorithm එක use කරනකොට සාමාන්‍ය hash algorithm එක use කරොත් අපි කියන එකට hash MAC නැත්නම් HMAC කියලා. Okay. It's just a matter of selection rather than using a block cipher like DES. If you use a hash function for your MAC, then we call it HMAC. Okay. Right. So this is anyway. I don't think that they will ask this. Okay, but anyway, in your slides they have mentioned this. They have mentioned this formula. Make a තියෙනවාගේ note එකේ UCSC note එකේ. But in order to understand this formula, you need to look at this diagram. I think මේ diagram එක වගේ note එකේ තියුන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි diagram එක තේරුම් ගන්න ඊට වැඩිය අමාරුයි. Right. I try to explain the diagram. තේරුම් ගන්න එක නම් අමාරු නෑ. ඇත්තටම කතන්දරේ මේ මතක තියාගන්න පුළුවන් ද කියලා exam එකට යද්දි. Right. So this is your data that you want to generate HMAC. Right. And you can see that we have break it into fixed size blocks. So then there's something called, this is our K is the key. Then there's something called additional strings called iPad and OPAD. So what we do is in HMAC calculations, first we generate this. That is, we have the message. This is the message. We then concatenate with key XO with iPad. You can see key. This XO, මෙහෙම තියෙන XO කියලා iPad. That is key XO with iPad. You get some sort of a string, and that is concatenated with your text. එයාව concatenate කරනවා message එකත් එක්ක. කළා එයාගේ hash එක ගන්න. මේ concatenate කරපු එකේ hash එක ගන්නවා. හරි. එතකොට අපිට එනවා digest එක. So that is this digest or this hash. මේ HMAC. either hash කියලා තියෙන මේක HMAC එකක්. To that, to that you concatenate K plus K and XO pad. Meaning K XO करना O pad देगा. O pad is another string. XO. So you can say K plus XO pad, and that is concatenate with the previous hash. කලින් ගත්ත hash එකත් එක්ක එයා concatenate කරනවා. මේ තියෙන කලින් hash එක. ඒ දෙක concatenate කරලා ආයි ඒ දෙන්නගේ hash ගන්න. මේ තියෙන මේ hash එක. So then that is your final HMAC value. Okay. Final HMAC value. Anyway, your UCSC note has this formula. The formula එකේ විදියට වැඩේ වෙන්නේ එහෙමයි. So මෙතන එකපාරක් hash වෙනවා. මෙතන දෙවෙනි පාර hash වෙනවා. අර කලින් hash වෙච්ච එකට මේක concatenate කරලා මෙහෙන් එන කෑල්ල මේ තියෙන කලින් මේ කෑල්ල ඒ දෙක concatenate කරලා ආයි hash කරනවා. That is how you get the final hash. පුළුවන් නම් මතක තියාගන්න. හරි නැතත් පොඩ්ඩක් ඒක කරන්නේ මොකද්ද කියලා තේරෙනකොට ඔයාලට පොඩ්ඩක් confidence තියෙනවා. exam එකට යද්දි. මෙලෝ මගුලක් තේරෙන්නේ නැතු මේක දිහා බලන් යනකොට වඩා. හරි. Right. So that is how HMAC work in general. Okay. So this is the formula. So it's we will keep keys because it's Mac. Mac means you use key. Right. So if you are using HMAC, you can use any Mac function. Sorry, any hash function like MD5, SHA, RIP, PMD. මතකනේ අපි මේ තුන කතා කරා. ওই තුනෙන් ඕන එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන් අපේ HMAC විදියට. හැබැයි ඒවා ගන්න මේ වගේ මේ විදියට process කරලා තමයි ගන්න. So you can see the key is used twice. කී එක දෙපාරක් use කරලා තියෙනවා. මෙතන use කරලා තියෙනවා. And we use it again. And you do hashing twice. එකපාරක් hash කරලා ඒකට අර කෑල්ල concatenate කරලා ආයි hash කරනවා. That is to make it even more stronger, randomize. Okay. Fine. So HMAC is very strong compared to hash or MAC. මොකද මේකේ definitely this is stronger than the hash. But the key එකක් use කරගම hash වලට වඩා hash mac එක strong වෙනවා. ඒක ගොඩක් අය වඩා කරන්න පුළුවන් මේ brute force attack එකක් කරන එක තමයි. brute force attack එකක් කරනවා කියන්නේ සෑහෙන resource යන time consume වෙන වැඩක්. But the security experts have find that even HMAC is not perfect. So there's a possibility of birthday attack on HMAC values. Right? But this is again not a very big issue because you need a lot of time, resources to do attack and crack it. HMAC එක තියෙන එකක්ම හදාගන්න සෑහෙන වෙලා යන වෙලා. But anyway, your UCSC note explains about birthday attack. මොකද ඒක තමයි possible weakness එක HMAC වල තියෙන. What is birthday attack? So it is based on what is known as birthday paradox. Right? Birthday paradox. So what is mean by birthday paradox? Paradox means initially you feel like something, but when you analyze it, you will feel like what you initially thought is wrong. Right? Paradox එක කියන්නේ නිකන් එකපාරට හිතෙන්නේ එකක්. එකපාරට හිතෙන එක නෙවෙයි ඇත්ත කතන්දරේ. Right. So this is what birthday problem is, or birthday paradox is. So if someone asks, say we have 10 people. So if there are 10 people in this class, what is the probability of, what is the chance of 2 people having the same birthday? අපේ පන්තියේ 10ක් ඉන්නවා. මේ 10 දෙනාගේ එකම දවසේ බර්ත්ඩේ වැටෙන්න තියෙන chance එක කොච්චරද? කාටද හිතන්න පුළුවන් මේක ගොඩක් පොඩි කියලා. මේක ගොඩක් පොඩි තමයි. මොකද තාම ඉන්නේ 10 දෙනයිනේ. But if you increase it to 10, 10 into 100, 10 into 20, 30, 40, after sometimes the probability of having two people having the same birthday can දෙන්නගේම birthday එක ජූනි 15 වෙනි. So that probability become very high. That become very high. But usually you may feel, no, that is not going to be very high. But in reality, it is usually very high after some value. So that is called birthday paradox. ඕකම තමයි H-max දෙකක් සමාන වෙනවා කියන්නේ. අපි හිතනවා මේ එකම H-max එක එන එකක් නෑ ලේසින් කියලා. හැබැයි ඒ H-max එක පොඩි නම් අපි හිතනවට වැඩිය එහෙම H-max දෙකක් එකට එන්න පුළුවන්. value දෙකකට එකම H-max එක එන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවා. ඒකයි මේ birthday problem එකයි H-max එක අතර තියෙන සම්බන්ධය. හරි. So this diagram explain it. Okay. Look at this. So what is the if we have 10 students, 10 දෙනා ඉන්නේ ස්ටුඩන්ට්ලා. What is the probability of two students having the same birthday? දෙන්නෙක් birthday එක එකම දවස් වැටෙන chance එක කීයද? මේක ඇක්ට results වලින් මේ graph එක ඇඳලා තියෙනවා. So that is 0.1. ඒ කියන්නේ 110ක සම්භාවිතාවක් තියෙනවා. ඉන්නේ 10 දෙනයි. හරි ඉන්නේ 10 දෙනා වුණාට මොකද 110ක සම්භාවිතාවක් තියෙනවා. මේ 10 දෙනාගේ birthday එකම දවසේ වැටෙන්නේ. එකම දවසේ කියන්නේ දවස් 365ක් තියෙනවානේ. There are 365 days. Just we have 10 students, but there's a possibility of 10% possibility that two of them having the same birthday. ඒක සාමාන්‍ය අපි හිතනවට වඩා ගොඩක් probability එක වැඩි. And if you increase it to something like 25 or 23 or something, හරි පන්ති ඉන්නේ ළමයි 22යි කියන්නේ 23යි කියන්නේ ස්ටුඩන්ට්ලා. Now the probability of two students having the same birthday, same day is 50%. 150ක chance එකක් තියෙනවා මේ ඉන්න 25 දෙනා නැත්නම් 26 දෙනා නම් ඉන්නේ මේ දෙන්නෙක්ට එකම බර්ත්ඩේ එක තියෙනවා. එකම දවසේ බර්ත්ඩේ තියෙනවා. දැන් අපිට එහෙම හිතෙන්නේ නැහැ නේද එකපාරට ස්ටුඩන්ට්ලා 25ක් ඉන්නකොට මේ අතර එකම දවසේ බර්ත්ඩේ තියෙන අය දෙන්නෙක් ඉන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. ඕක 50ක් විතර වෙනකොට හරි 90ක් පැනලා. 50ක් ඉන්නවා කියන්නේ එකම දවසේ බර්ත්ඩේ වැටෙන්න තියෙන chance එක 90ක් විතර තියෙනවා. يعني එකම දවසේ දෙන්නෙක්ගේ බර්ත්ඩේ තියෙනවා. So this is called the birthday paradox. අපි හිතනවට වඩා මේ සම්භාවිතාව වැඩි. Okay. හොඳම වැඩේ chat GPT එකෙන් ගිහලා අහන්න මේක. හරිද? ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඒ communication එකට දැන් පුරුදු වෙනවා. හරි? Go and ask. Go to chat GPT. या कैलकुलेशन कर ले संभाविता वो chat GPT डाउन chat GPT इल्लू मेडिया डाउन अब जेमिनी के हम it looks like internet is right. So what is the probability that any two students having same birthday අපි පන්ති ඉන්න ළමයි ගන්න කිව්වේ නෑනේ. If there are say 30 students පන්ති ඉන්න ස්ටුඩන්ට්ලා 30යි එකම දවසේ බර්ත්ඩේ වැටෙන්න දෙන්නෙක්ගේ කවුරු හරි දෙන්නෙක්ගේ බර්ත්ඩේ වැටෙන්න තියෙන සම්භාවිතය මොකක්ද කියලා පේනවා. එයා කියනවා ඔයා මේ අහන්නේ බර්ත්ඩේ පැරඩොක්ස් එක ගැන නේද කියලා. Right? Surprisingly, the probability at least 2 students in a group of 30 sharing a birthday is approximately 70%. 70ක chance එකක් තියෙනවා දෙන්නෙක්ට එක දවසක වැටෙන්න බර්ත්ඩේ එක. ඊට පස්සේ කියන ඇයි මේක හයි? හරි. මේක පැරඩොක්ස් එකක්. මේක එකපාරට හිතෙන්නේ නැහැ මෙච්චර ලොකුයි කියලා. හරි. නමුත් ඒක එහෙම තමයි. හරි. ඒක එහෙම තමයි. So that is so එකපාරට අපිට හිතෙන්නේ නැහැ මේ H-max දෙක සමාන වෙයි කියලා. නමුත් එහෙම H-max දෙක සමාන වෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා මේ කියන්නේ. හැබැයි ඒක මොන H-max එකද කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ. H-max දෙකක් සමාන වෙන්න පුළුවන්. So that is a possible weakness in H-max. ඇත්තටම ඔක hash වලටත් තියෙනවා. හරි. H-max කියලා ඔක අඩු වෙලක් නැහැ. So that is called birthday paradox solutions. Okay. So that is a possible, there's a possible weakness related to the birthday paradox problem. Right. අපිට අග්ගල් UCSC note එක go through කරමු. ඇතන go through කරන් දැන් ඔක්කොම ටික කව කරා අපි. So hash concept, description of hash algorithms, application of hash algorithms, HMAC algorithms, and security issues. Security issue එක තමයි ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් birthday problem. Right. First, what is a hash function? Right. What is a MAC function? MAC is keyed. So the purpose of hash MAC is to detect changes or integrity. Okay. So this is what hash function is. It bigger text or value is transferred into a fixed size value. So there's possibility of collision. Okay. And those hash functions are well-known functions. Okay, hash functions රහස් නෙමෙයි. SHA, MD5 ඔක්කොම ප්‍රසිද්ධ functions. So some properties of good hash functions, like weak collision resistance, strong collision resistance, one-way property. And remember, it must give you a fixed size, and it must be smaller than your variable size thing. Then the MD5 features, right? මේ diagram එක කතා කරා. Strength of MD5. හැබැයි MD5 දැන් එච්චර පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නැහැ because it is now vulnerable. So therefore alternative or better alternative is SHA. Okay, SHA. So SHA function. So only difference is the digest value is different. Okay. And also there's a maximum size limit. ඒ ප්‍රශ්න නැති වෙනවා PMD වලට ගියාම. And then the problem of what is the better way of best correct way of saving password. Don't save the password itself, or don't even encrypt and save it. Rather, save the hash. Better encrypt and save the hash, or at least or save the plain text hash. And also, there's a possibility of dictionary attack. Dictionary attack can මිනිස්සු මේ ප්‍රසිද්ධ password දානවා. What is the solution for that? Add a public salt. Dictionary attack එකෙන් බේර ගන්න අපිට පුළුවන් විදියක් තමයි help කර එකක් විදියට add a public salt to make it more complicated. Right. So then, what is MAC? We use a key, and also we use block cipher like DES. Okay. Then of course, this is how the MAC work. Here then HMAC, it's pretty much like MAC, but rather than using a block cipher like DES, we use conventional hash function. Conventional hash function together with a key. Okay. මේක තර diagram එකෙන් මම explain කරේ මොකද මේක diagram එක නැතුවට මට මේක explain කරන්න විදියක් නැත. ඔයාගේ note එකේ diagram එක නැහැ. මේක විතරක් දාන්න. note එකේ තියෙන හැම අකුරක්ම වැදගත්. මොකද note එක පොඩිනේ ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ. ඒකට exam එකට ගොඩක් අයට note එකේ ඔයා හිතන්නේ නැති දේන් වලින් අහනවා. හරි. So any hash function like MD5, SHA, PMD can be used. Note එක diagram එක තියෙනවා. Sorry. Note එක diagram එක තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ මේක අහන්න පුළුවන් ආ. බලාගෙන. ඔයා මෙන්න මේක තේරුම් ගන්න මොකක් එක්කද? ඔය පිටිපස්සේ තියෙන diagram එකත් එක්ක. හරි? මෙන්න මේ diagram එකත් එක්ක. Diagram එකත් එක්ක තමයි ඒක තේරෙන්නේ. And also the possibility of birthday attack. Brute force එක කොහොමද තියෙනවා? ඊට අමතරව birthday attack. ඊට පස්සේ මොකද්ද මේ birthday paradox එක කියන්නේ? Birthday paradox එක කියන්නේ. And that's it. Right. So we have done 2 topics. This is done. This is done. In the next class, when we have security, we'll try to do another 2 topics. Make another 2 topics and අමාරුයි. ඔය ඊළඟට තියෙන ලොකුම topic දෙක. ඕවිට අපිට එක topic එකක් ගන්න තමයි කරන්නේ. හැබැයි මෙයා යට හරියට එනකොට ආයෙ අපිට topic දෙක ගන්න කරන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද ඒක පොඩි. මොකද මේ topic දෙක තමයි ලොකු topic දෙක. ඒක හන්ද අපි ගොඩක් අයට මේක මේ topic දෙකෙන් තමයි වැඩිම question අහන්නේ. Topic 3 and 4 encryption, public key and private key. අපි ඒ දෙක පොඩ්ඩක් හිමින් කරමු. හරි. ඊට පස්සේ අපිට පුළුවන් ආයෙ මේවා හයියෙන් කරන්න. Right. We stop at this.